Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Brett, aka the CruiseSniper, and today we're going to talk about cruising, but cruising 101. I'm talking from the start to the finish of the planning and the researching part of it. So if that interests you, stick around. Okay, so almost all cruises start with the planning and researching. Here I'll give you some guidance on traveling out of just U.S. ports, more pointed towards the state of Florida, since I do live outside the Clearwater Beach area, and most of the time I do travel from either Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, or Port Canaveral, even though you have Jacksonville and West Palm Beach. When you start, and is this hat on straight? I can't tell. Okay. Oh, sorry. We all start by pecking away at the keyboards, whether it be Travelzoo or Orbitz or iCruise, CrewCon, Cruises Only, Cruises.com or Cruise.com, TopCruiseDeals.com, Vacations to Go, Cruise Critic. You're getting the idea. There's a lot of information out there. Okay, so all the travel agent type of websites like the Top Cruise Deal, Vacation to Go, all the stuff like that, all very important. A lot of times, just get your meat and potatoes of the cruise or where they're going to possibly go. Just go right to the websites. Go to Carnival or Royal Caribbean or MSC Cruise Lines, Norwegian Cruise Lines, Celebrity, Holland America, Princess. They're the mainstream cruise lines that go out of the North American market. I can safely say the North American market with them. Which should you choose from? What are the perks of each? Is one cruise line better than the other? I'm sure by now you have a pretty good idea of which one is better than the next through probably friends or reading online, whatever it may be. Don't forget that friend that cruises. I know you probably won't call them, but send them a message. Get on that little phone. And before you know, that friend's going to return, probably refer to you to a veteran. There you may find the knowledge you may lack while getting to share some of their experiences, the good and the bad. And by then, they'll probably go back a few times, but you'll probably end up speaking to that person in person over a cocktail or maybe on the phone. But pick their brains. Along with those experienced travelers, experience being a key word. I mean, we all know, we all got that friend that does part-time travel agency, but every time you walk in the bar, the person sitting at the bar talking about how good they are or what they don't do. So I've given you a few ideas, nothing that you probably haven't thought of. Again, this is 101, but I got a feeling that maybe you're getting a little bit motivated. You're thinking, all right, well, maybe Brett's not on, he's not such a bad person. Maybe he's being honest with me. Well, I'll tell you right now, I am. It's only going to take experience of watching some more of these videos to understand I'm a straight shooter. So now you're starting to get just a little bit motivated. Are you getting motivated? You should be. Tell your family, tell your friends, get excited, get it out there. Once you start talking about things you want to do and may want to do, then those are when those dreams become more of a reality. Maybe start watching the vlogs like this one at like 2 a.m. I don't know if that was right, but you know what I mean. Maybe you can start searching through forums. But not so fast. All right, I'm going to give you one piece of advice here. Don't believe everything you see on the forums, okay? Don't discount valuable information while getting lost in trivial stories. The storyteller, there are a lot of storytellers on blogs, I've actually too. There's a lot of storytelling going on in forums. I mean, you can see the people that have got 10,000 replies to comments. They're the people that sit home, got nothing to do. It sounds simple, but it's not. And I'm not discounting the people that reply to 10,000 comments. God bless them, if they got that kind of time, whatever. There are a lot of experts out there that have been on a handful of cruises. Spot them first and swat them away, because you know what? That's the storytelling. Okay, we're getting close. I know you are. You're excited. I know it's probably 3 a.m. Grab the Gatorade, maybe another vodka and tonic or whatever it is that you prefer. So you ask me, where do I take it from here? I've got this information. What do I do? I've got so much information. There's so much crap out there. It's a good question. All right, next, who's going? you're single, or you're married, you have children, you have neighbors. Can't bring your dog or your cat unless you do transatlantic with Cunard. You'd have to book way in advance, but then you can bring the puppy, Fido. But make sure you check with the passport requirements and all that. Get people's ages, because it matters. If you have children, you're going to need to entertain them while you're at the bar boozing, and also get entertainment for the adult kids. And you know who I'm talking about. You know the guys that want to marry mommy, those types of guys that are high maintenance, those. Where do you live? You be flying or you driving to your departure port? All right, so you got the ages, the kids, you're getting an idea of who's going. What type of cabin do you need? You want an inside cabin? You want an outside cabin? A balcony? A family room? A sunset suite, veranda? A junior suite? A grand suite? The list goes on and on. There's plenty of categories. Some have 2 stories, some wraparound balconies, hot tubs on the balconies. The choices are endless. It all comes down to your budget. I know it's 2 a.m. Well, it's probably about 2:05. Maybe you watched this video a couple times already, just simply because I do speak quickly, and it's probably more or less because I'm nervous. This is tough to do. I normally write books for a living, but so many people want to see the vlogs now. But what part of the ship do you want to be on? Do you want to be forward, aft, starboard, port? Do you want to be on a lower deck, a midship, or high and forward? These questions will be answered as you navigate through the booking process, as you get closer and closer, and whittling it down to when, where, and who you want to cruise with. Another tip, be mindful of stateroom location. And this is just coming straight from a guy who has seen it, done it, and had those cabins. If possible, avoid crew doors, especially on MSC Cruise Line. But avoid cruise doors. And they work their butts off. The crew works literally 14 to 16 hours a day most times. They're tired. They're trying to do things that they're overwhelmed. The doors are slammed. They're not worried about that. Loud areas, nightclubs, or Lido deck, above or beyond, above or below. Lower decks forward often mean you'll have the bow thrusters on the ship, or the anchors going, dropping down in the water if you have to tender to port. You're not seeing so much as tender in the United States now. Most of these cruise lines are building piers for their ships now. Lower decks, aft, maybe the screw or the prop shaking, the prop spinning in the back, that causes a vibration, which is felt throughout a lot of the ship, but it's concentrated in that particular area. So you might get a vibration or a hum doing 20 knots going through the Gulf of Mexico, or some of the outer islands, St. Martin, St. Thomas, or going down to St. Kitts. How long do you want to cruise for? This will dictate your departure port for the most part. Not necessarily, but if you're my point being is shorter cruises tend to go out of Florida and Southern California. They do out of the Pacific Northwest as well, but your Baltimores and your New York, they don't have cruises to nowhere anymore, which were awesome, by the way. But keep that in mind. If you're going to do a shorter cruise, chances are, if you're on the East Coast, you're going to be going down to Florida. So pick the airport and the prices that work the best for you to fly you and boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever it may be. Speaking of budget, since we're talking about the airfares and the airports and the ports that are relatively close together, build a budget for the cruise line you may want that fits within your budget, and then set aside another budget for your onboard expenditures. And the reason I say this is your cruise, as much as it sounds like it's all inclusive, and it may be for some people, it's truly not. Things like duty-free shopping, on and off the ship, shore excursions, the spa, the casino, bingo, buckets of beer, martinis, things like that. They all cost money unless you get packages of some kind to offset the beverages, so to speak. But the casino, bingo, spa, these are things that normally it's going to be an out-of-pocket expense. But if you don't play bingo and you don't go to the casino, hey, what do you care? But if you do gamble, just know that Disney doesn't have casinos on their ships, but they do go to the Bahamas, so you can go to Atlantis or that new one that's over on Cable Beach. Know that not all cruise lines are created equal. They try, but they honestly aren't. The mainstream ones, that is. You got the higher end ones, and I'm not talking about them. That's a completely different story in a different video. Most of these cruise lines will offer payment plans, depending on how far out you book it. If you do need a payment plan, that is, be mindful of deadlines or cancellation policies. It's very important. You could lose a lot of money just by not paying attention to certain dates. I know we're getting closer. You're starting to think, all right, well, maybe he has an idea what he's talking about. Destinations, you even know or care where you go. Again, research has instructed you, and some of the websites you've gone on probably have already gotten an idea of pricing, so that might dictate exactly what port you go out of and where you're going on your first, second, or third handful cruise, whatever it may be. Another tip, shorter cruises from Florida go to the Bahamas from the east coast of Florida. From the west coast, they usually go to Cozumel and Grand Cayman. They're 4 or 5 nighters. They may throw Key West in there, but for the most part, you can expect on the west coast, Grand Cayman, Cozumel, Key West, and occasionally they do like a run over to Havana, Cuba, which I did last year out of Tampa. And that was on a Royal Caribbean ship. Longer cruises go to the more desirable islands. St. Thomas, St. Martin, St. Kitts, Aruba. They tend to be the longer ones, the 6 to 7, the 8-nighters, and even up to 10 and 14 nights. Longer cruises tend to be the more desirable cruises, but for first-time cruises, I always recommend do a 3 or 4-nighter. You're not even sure you're going to like the damn thing. And so why be stuck on a boat if you're not enjoying it after the second day? And along those lines, I'll tell you, don't just book a cruise. I had somebody, I get people asking me all the time, what do you recommend, Brett? Just don't book a cruise without speaking to somebody or doing some research, because you may find yourself on some line where you consider people rude, and that just might be their background or their where they're from, and it's, do something that you're comfortable with as your first cruise that is within your budget. All right, like I stated before, in Florida, you can expect the overall deals for cruises out of Miami. Fort Lauderdale will be next. Port Canaveral will be after that. And then it's a toss-up between Tampa and Jacksonville, which has a lot more of a limited selection to choose from. With Tampa, you have the Skyway Bridge, which limits to the height of the ships that can go into the port of Tampa. And Jacksonville, I'll be honest with you, I think there was only Carnival that goes out of there, and I haven't cruised out of Jacksonville. If you're in California, consider Long Beach, San Diego, Holland America, Princess Cruise Line, Carnival. They all go out of them. Some are shorter. Some will go to Catalina Island and some place they call it the blowhole and the shithole. Mind my French, but that's just how I know it. I've been there. And there wasn't a whole Ensenada, Mexico. Along the lines in California, there are seasonal ones that go out of Seattle or Vancouver, and they do the Alaskan itineraries. I think Princess even does like a 1-nighter from Vancouver to Seattle, and they just go back and forth. If you're flying in whatever port that you so pick, and depending on where you live in the country or whatever the airfares accommodate your budget the best, you're going to need transfers if you fly in. Multiple forms, because buses, taxi, Uber, car rentals, trains, or limos, you get the idea. If you're driving in, you're going to need parking advice or recommendations. Here's a tip. When driving in the port, keep in mind that local hotels often will offer you a lot better deal than parking at the actual cruise terminal. And it could be $20 to $25 a day in Florida to park at the terminal for the cruise ship and be 5 minutes from the entrance, versus paying anywhere from $6 to $10 a night at a local hotel or an off-site parking where they'll transfer you to the actual entrance to the pier. So if you have some flexibility there, I would just tell you to save some money and spend that money somewhere else. When did you want to go? Whenever you choose, up to you, obviously. The best rates are usually September to December, like the first, the second week in December, with right around December 7th being the absolute cheapest each and every year to book a cruise. And I say that just simply because just about every time, every year, it's the same thing. But keep in mind, September through the first week or two in December, and it scares off a lot of people because they get this hurricane thing in their head and they think that the cruise ship's going to go head on into the hurricane. I know you've seen the stories and on the news where a couple ships were pressured financially to get back to a certain port and reload the ship. But if it comes to a hurricane, trust me, they're not going to go through a hurricane and risk $1 billion ship plus all the 4,000 or 5,000 people that are on board. One of the last things I'll say is if you see a sale online, don't book it that quickly, because it may not be a sale. It just might be their marketing. They're notorious for advertising and their marketing ploys and making something sound better than it was last week. And chances are it was the same thing as they sold last week. They just repackaged it a different way. Be mindful of trends, the marketing trends. Compare websites and incentives that are being offered. Complimentary items or perks. Beverage packages, onboard credits, gratuities, or Wi-Fi are great incentives that are offered regularly. Sometimes Sometimes it may be one, sometimes it'll be all four. Sometimes Celebrity offers all four if you book an Ocean View or better category. So if you find a cruise that's $800 or $900, but they're giving you literally $1,000 worth of incentives, it makes the cruise relatively inexpensive. Whatever you choose, though, enjoy each and every moment with your family or your friends that you go with. Cruising is so much fun, and that's one of the reasons I do it so often. Last year alone, I did 11 cruises and spent nearly 80 days on the ocean. I absolutely love it. I love what I do. As for these videos, I'll do more of the videos. I want you to know that I'm aware that there are plenty of individuals out there that will tell you something similar to what I've said or have another idea. I get it. They're all over the place. Obviously, these aren't the only things to consider for your situation. I can only hope that it assists you in some way. I'm pretty sure it was helpful. Come on, you can tell me. I'm listening. Just tell me. My experience comes from roughly 20 years of cruising on various cruise lines. I've even written a book or two if you're interested. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Just ask, and I'll do my best to give you an honest answer in a timely fashion. In the next video, I'll cover the pros and cons of some of the cruise lines. Until then, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something today. Take care.